Milan.
One sec. Now we are recording. All right. Welcome
Good.
everyone to the webinar on the Milky Way Enterprise Map. I'm really happy to have Annika with me. We have met, some years ago when Annika was still a consultant with IRM Sweden. And I've been fascinated ever since by the Milky Way approach. And at some point we decided to combine enterprise design, the enterprise design idea, and the Milky Way, and it really worked extremely well. We have used it ever since. And also since a year ago when we published Edgy, there is a lot to, there are a lot of cases, there's a lot of work that we have been doing together. So Annika has been in enterprise architecture and business architecture for over 15 years, is currently at Scania, has a background in controlling and business development, management, has been a teacher in enterprise architecture for since 2011, and is constantly on a quest to create better enterprises, which couldn't be better aligned with what we are doing at Intersection Group.
Thank
so
you,
Annika, I
Milan.
don't see you right now. It's black.
No, I think there is something with my camera. It worked before, didn't it? I don't know what's happened. Bummer. I'll see if I can get this one, or if we just ignore it. It's nicer with camera, definitely. Suddenly got
It is
this far.
nicer.
Let's see if I can choose. No, this one is not. And I don't dare to jump out because I've been here.
It worked before, strangely
Yeah,
enough.
it did. I'm trying to turn it off and turn it on. And I'm not really sure if you can choose cameras, can you? No. I think I just leave it like this, and then maybe it just comes back. And I'm sorry for not being in the picture. And maybe I can sort of start sharing, and then you can get to at least a picture of me for those who haven't seen me before.
Yeah. Sorry that you're stuck with my face for this webinar.
But you will be the one sort of taking, questions and also be to some extent in the background if there are anything happening, and also monitoring the chat, right?
Right.
So I am super glad to be here today and to share the Milky Way thinking and the Milky Way maps and how they kind of what they are and then how they came about. And I just sort of listened through the webinar with Wolfgang and Jim, and now I lost the third guy's name, with how they presented the capabilities. And just for a start, I mean, I'm totally in line with most of the things that they are seeing, and this could be seen as an add-on to what they were describing, in another kind of way of thinking around these things. And like you said, Milan gave an introduction to me and my background. So I've been working together with Milan and thinking together with you and the rest of the people in the intersection group for quite some time, and I'm really enjoying the ability to improve and find new ways of doing things. And the Milky Way is one of those things that has been evolving over the years. But maybe a short thing about Intersection Group. You know that we are a nonprofit organization. We're working with the motto, with the thinking of we'll help people create better enterprises. And it is a community with so many great people contributing to how we can do this better. And Edgy is, of course, also a very important part of that. And just a few reminders, like Edgy, and also there are community events. We will talk a bit in the end of the next conference in Rome in September. And we're also having learnings and publications and also trainings. But I would be kind of brief on them. And if you have questions, just sort of put them in the chat and we will make sure to answer them and point in the right direction. But now, the Milky Way, what is it? Well, I'm going to share a story that I usually share when I start to describe what this is and what can we do with how we work and how we convey really complicated or complex information in larger settings when there's so many different things ongoing. And as Milan said, I've been working with architecture for a very long time. I mean, I started as a consultant back in 2011, and before that, I was involved in developing businesses in various ways that really maybe at that time wasn't so close to architecture, but um, dealing with challenges and wide sets of questions on how we can improve. And I came into the situations about like this one, what this little picture is conveying. Meetings, people are presenting different things, and a person presents, and it sounds really great, or it doesn't, depending on what you think. And after this talk or presentation, or I don't know, sharing something, the people around the room are left or have created, depending on how you see it, different pictures or mental models or reflections in their minds uh, that will most likely all have a reference to what was presented, but it's very fragmented. And I don't know if when I talk to people, most people can sort of recognize the situation like this. You would have maybe the process guy in the far left here saying, okay, this idea doesn't really fit the new process landscape. How should we do this? Kind of cut in the other direction, or the more text-based guy might say something around doesn't really fit with the strategy document that we just released, or maybe we could tweak, but I don't know. And then there's always somebody with this ability to implement or to. I hope that Carl, that you can hear. If somebody else have problem hearing you, okay, thank you, Milan. And then there is this implementation thing that, well, brilliant idea, but there is a slot in end of 2027 where we might be able to do a little POC. It's super crammed. It's hard to get it prioritized. And then there's always somebody that is thinking of, who is responsible? What about the org chart? How do we do these things? And it's none of these people are wrong. The problem is that when they start the conversation after this presentation, I think they will have a pretty hard time finding common ground and going to the next level of this, which would be, how do we make this work? Is this valuable? Is this valid? Is this something that we should do? Uh, yeah, the camera. I don't know what happened with the camera. So let's pretend then that the next oh yes, this is just sort of, and it's not just these four. I mean, there are so many different ways of showing business or enterprise related information and IT related information, or the more sort of these customer journeys. And I mean, there's a ton of different ways of doing it, and finding the right one. I don't think there is a right one. I just think there are many, many, many different ways of doing it. And with every new thing that comes along, I feel that they're more decomposing our ability and fracturing our ability to find common ground rather than making it stronger and something that sort of ties things together and helps us sort of be faster with understanding things as a group. And I don't think those of you who are architects would know, and those of you who aren't, maybe you've met framework people, and all these seems like simplifications, but then after a while you realize that it's just another layer of something, another way of slicing things, and it's really, really hard to find a good way of finding common ground. But let's return to this meeting and pretend that the next meeting, the next sort of agenda point in this, is a new colleague presenting him or herself, and that person says, "I come from Fiumicino near Rome in Italy." And if you think of the mental models people will get in their heads, at least Um, most of the people I know have a geographical reference, so they would know Italy. You start there. If you haven't been to Europe, if you don't know anything about Europe, you might have heard of Italy and can maybe point it, you know, probably Europe-ish somewhere. Or if you know your European geography, you would know that it's the boot-shaped country here in the south. And maybe you've been to Rome, so you have a more zoomed-in version. Oh, really? That's good. And then there might be somebody that has actually been there and can close their eyes and remember the beautiful canals, or maybe there was a really, really nice restaurant or a bar somewhere where something happened. And we all are navigating from the same dimensions. We have kind of trained in these dimensions. We have a consistent stories that over and over again tell us that this is what the world looks like. And if we do not believe it, then we can, look down from an airplane and actually see the real thing. That is kind of the problems with enterprise. It's really hard to sort of zoom out. How do you, should you look at the offices? So what should you look at? But so there is this idea of having a shared model and this shared geography. So now we come to this question. Is it possible to create this type of map of an enterprise? And I think most of the people that are trying to do these things with process diagrams or process overviews, application maps, or whatever, have some kind of idea of this blueprint or this map so you can navigate your ways around. But it's really hard to find something that a lot of people in the same organization can navigate from, because it has to be something really, I don't know if tangible is the right word, but something that is reflected and something that most people can reference to. And the question is then, how do you do this? And when I was back in, I think this is 2013 or something, super frustrated by the lack of understanding of architecture, the amount of hours we put into what we thought was good models, good stories, good overviews, and so on, and yet people did not understand. And it was just, oh, and I also felt that we were doing one type of map for processes, one for applications, another one for information, and they were cut differently. And we didn't really make it easy for our audience either. So after a while, it struck to me, what would be a geography in an enterprise that would actually work and people could relate to? And the one that I found was the overall value flow, this sort of the thing that we would do over and over again as a whole organization, and um, something that is fairly consistent. So it doesn't change every second year, I don't know, every 6 months or something, but something that we are doing over and over again. And a bit inspired by Porter's value chain back in, I don't know, it was the 80s or the 70s. Some things are stable, I was starting to think that there is this thing that is ongoing all the time. We have something around product development, coming up with new ideas, new products, new services, depending on what type of company we are. And that at a certain point, we need to decide, okay, do we want to go with this? And then we either produce it or prepare our organization for being able to deliver if it's a service. And at a certain point, we meet customers, we make an agreement, uh, whether you sign a contract or if you just sort of exchange and people pay for whatever you have and you get the service or you sort of get the product. And it's in some shape or form, we all need to deliver things to our customers. So there is a delivery aspect of this. It could be like, use the email, or it could be really something big that is an implementation or whatever. But it's kind of the same pattern. And then we need to make sure that we get paid, of course. And in the end, we need to figure out what is it that we have done. Did it work? Did people like it? Did we make money? Is it viable? Is it something that we should do more of or should do less of? And then we have another go. we look at what we have, they look at the portfolio, and then we say, okay, this is good enough. We can sort of run the same portfolio towards the customers another year. Then we do that, or we think, there's some of these services or products are getting a bit old. We need to sort of reinvent them or improve them or replace them with other types of things. And this cycle is ongoing all the time. So this is the geography that I found, and that we have been sort of building into the way we work with the Milky Way in the intersection context as well. This idea of something that is ongoing over and over again, uh, and most organizations have this. It's whether you are a product organization, that maybe this one is a bit easier to find, but also in governmental organizations or in the other types of organizations, you have this consistent going on that you would, have ideas, make them, prepare them for the market, and then offer them to the market or to your users if you were in a governmental organization or sort of non-payable. You have another relationship with your customers, and then you make it available. You get paid somehow, and then you make analysis. So this is logic of the value flow thinking. And then at the time, we didn't really work that close yet, Milan and I. We sort of worked a bit. I was inspired by the work that you did, and we tried to sort of find common ground. When we really got to how can we strengthen this way of thinking was when we moved into thinking of purpose. This Simon Sinek guy with the start with the why, this idea, why are we doing things? And then would be the how are we doing these things and what are we doing? What are we offering? So there is, those of you who know that this guy, and those of you who don't know, then check him out. It's really good things. But this idea of adding a purpose to this flow that I spoke about, because otherwise it's just a flow. We don't really know why we're doing things, but we want to add this clear purpose that could help us guiding behavior and guiding ways of thinking in various situations throughout this loop. So uh, with that, we kind of had the different items or the different things that we wanted on our enterprise on a napkin. Sort of, why are we doing this? How are we doing things? And what are we offering? You could put into whom, but sort of these three circles or these three dimensions. And if we now tie this back to the enterprise design facets, I'm not going to go so much into them because there are other webinars going into them more in depth. But basically, we see that we can look at an enterprise from three different facets. The identity facet, which will be questions like, why do we exist? Who are we? What matters to us? What do we do in certain situations because we are we? And then we have the other one, which would be the experience. What is the role in what is our role in people's lives? What do we want to bring to the table so that people can have a better situation and we fill some kind of gap in whatever tasks they're trying to get done? And the blue one, which would be architecture. How are we operating, and what are we capable of achieving? I mean, with the things we already have, what is it that we can do? And then when we tie this together, it gets really, really strong with the identity that tell us how to sort of why we behave in certain ways and what is our purpose here, um, the experience we want to create, and also what are we able to do. So if we now take these three aspects or facets and combine them into what I just said about the value flow, the arc, and the idea of this ongoing work, you see that at the very center you have the why, the purpose, and then we have the how, which would be the architecture, and then outside you would have the experience, or to some extent the what. What are the tasks that we can help our customers or users with? That then will be something that we are able to deliver through our capabilities, and we're doing that in a way that fits with our purpose. So this is, if you again reflect back to the meeting we had in the beginning of the discussion of the presentation, if we were to have something like this that we can navigate around and this idea would come, hopefully the people around the table could find where in this universe or this enterprise is the topic that was just presented situated, and how can we understand that from the other things that is ongoing. So intro, and then moving into the different aspects. And if we look at this, we have a base map, which I would say is a base map and a starting point. It's not like, at least I usually break out of this after a while because it gets a bit too narrow, it gets a bit too restricted. But if you're starting with this, I think this template will be a really, really good starting point. And what we see is, as I said, we have the purpose in the middle, and then we have the architecture or the capabilities mostly when we do the mapping in the blue area, and then we have the tasks around here, or even journeys if we want. And in this very, very sort of starting examples, we have added things here on the in the sectors. We say there is something here around building, there is something around developing a market, and then operate and learn and optimize. And this is the basis for this um, train company that we're using in the intersection context. So see this as a template helping you to where to put things. And as I said, we have the different aspects of the edgy framework or the edgy way of thinking. I don't want to spend too much time on the different aspects, but just for a reference, you know, the purpose is sort of a reason why an enterprise exists and what people pursue and believe in. So I think this is really powerful things that when you're in an organization, you don't think of it so much if these things are done good. But when you maybe are in a transition, or when things are happening and people are not really acting as they were before, you can really feel the dissonance between what's said and what is actually happening. So this purpose is really a super strong part of things we want to make more tangible and more visible, and also something that more easily can guide uh, the um, the doings in different situations. So you can sort of divide them into different subsets. And like I said, I'm like there are other webinars where they dig into this in more detail. But remember, the purpose is in the circle. So we could say that we have the purpose here, and for our little train, I shouldn't say little, it's a very ambitious endeavor, this train thing, that we have put the different parts of the purpose into different sectors of the Milky Way, as a way of showing that when we are building and preparing our business, certain things like build a shared infrastructure and adapt it for new transportation technologies are purposes and the sort of behaviors that we want to have in that section. And when we are operating it, it's more into functionality, safety, comfort, and convenience. You don't want to have too much experience in your operational parts of it. And this is really something that you could use a lot more when we combine purpose with the next layer, which would be the task. Now we jump out to the red facets, and this is the dimension of the tasks that people want to have, sort of want to get done with our help. And in this case, it could be somebody that wanted to visit a loved one. And it doesn't start with them buying a ticket. It starts way earlier. And you could do task boards. There are a lot of techniques on how you can identify tasks with top tasks or interviews and a lot of things. And as I said, I'm not going to go through them, but it's really things that people want to get done. And when you look at this, you can then group them into different areas and different parts of what then could be a journey if you want to look at it as a flow. And if we now, let's see if this one works. Come on, where am I? There I am. We can add the tasks to the red arrow here. And here you can see that we have, even though we haven't connected the tasks, they fall nicely into some kind of journey. And here it's also worth mentioning that we are primarily here looking at the passenger task, but we also have a number of other actors, which we also could describe and put into the actions. We could say that we have contractors that want to work on the site, or want to sign a contract to be able to maybe build part of this railway infrastructure, whatever they're working on. And you could have candidates that want to be part of this endeavor and then want to find a job or something. So now we have added the purpose and we have added the tasks and the experience part. Now we go into where things get done. So the capability is like, if for those of you who heard the talk last week, the what are we able to do by orchestrating people and assets that we have. And basically, with what we have, what can we do? And you can also sort of apply a more futures way of looking at. We want to do this. What do we need to add to our capabilities in order for us to be able to do these things? And this can be so many different things. And in the case of the uh, train example, this is the sort of version of the map that we have done. So you have some customer interaction, you have some train operation things, some railway and infrastructure management things. You have some support and you have some change things that you want to be able to do. So basically, this is, you could say, sometimes I can refer to them as like Lego bricks or something, like that you can combine in various ways in order for your organization or enterprise to perform the tasks that you want them to do. um, and this is all good because you need to have the capabilities so that you know how things are connected and what works. But the thing that sort of takes a capability map and moves it into this geography is when you put this into a map like this, because the position really, really matters in this. So we're saying that we are adding things in a sector, you could say, of the Milky Way. So here you would have the purpose of what is it that drives us when we're working with this part of our value flow, the building part. Well, builds shared infrastructure and these adaptive for new technology, transportation technologies. We are probably fairly curious on trying new things, and we want to make sure that we're not building too much private. We want to build an open infrastructure. Maybe that could be sort of values that could work. And then we have certain tasks here that are performed. And here in this sections, the customers haven't even entered yet, or at least not as actors in the way that they would buy something from us. We haven't released anything yet. We're just preparing here. So now we have the four dimensions, the three dimensions that I started out with in the facets. But I would like to talk a bit about let's see if I get this one going, about geography and how you can think when you have an actual map. So this is material that we have blended from Simon Wardley, and I hope if you haven't checked his maps out, then do that because they're really an interesting way of looking at enterprises from just a bit of another angle, but still very interesting. But the story is that if you think of yourself being part of the Trojan War way back in Greece somewhere, um, and you are preparing for a big fight somewhere, or you know that there are people coming and threatening your city, and you need to find a way of defending yourself, or you are the aggressor and you want to figure out how do we get this one going. What are you most sort of what are you what would you benefit most of? Would you benefit most of a geographical map that tells you where can you go, where are the obstacles, where are the others, where is easy movements, where do we have the mountains, and how far are things? You know, these different geographical dimensions. Or would it be of a great use to do a SWOT diagram? Okay, there is a strength here. One very well-trained Spartan army, high level of motivation. That's good. Most of the Persian army are mercenaries and slaves. We can maybe anticipate some. I don't know what you can anticipate from this information, and then maybe look at the threats. The persons want to get rid of us. The Oracle says is really a dodgy film. Um, mm, you know, all these different things. And my experience is that text can only take you this long. Things that are described but not put into context are hard to work with when you want to start a change in in a geographic planet trip or something, but also when you are trying to make changes in an existing landscape within an enterprise. If we could have some kind of geographical map, it would be so much easier to navigate than having all these different aspects of things. So let's move on here and see. So And if we want to make this geography, then we need to understand more about a capability, and we need to understand more about how this capability is related to other capabilities. We want to find the spot where this one is fitting. And how do you do that? Well, first you need to understand what are the tasks that you are performing as a capability. So you need to understand what do I need, what are we capable of doing, and so on. And then you need to start asking questions. Okay, if I am here in, I don't know, this marketing and communication capability, what is going on before I can start my work? What are the dependencies to things that sometimes people refer to as upstream? And when you have figured out those, it could be that you need to have something to market, a product program or something. Uh, then you could start thinking, okay, what happens with what I am providing, what I am uh, making after I'm done? Who is listening to what I am offering? And by asking these three questions, you can start to see where would your capability fit. And if you do that with the different capabilities that you have, after a while, you will see that things fit. And the geography will start to play a way more important role than it used to do before. So this is really something that I'd like you to think of when you have maybe you have a map like this. It is a kind of a geography, but it's really hard to see the different dependencies and the different uh, ways to sort of in sort of different ways that these capabilities are connected, because there are so many things that is going on between them that sort of creates a network of capabilities that allows the entire enterprise to work. And with this way of looking at geography and asking these things and really trying to use the geographical dimension and the value flow as an overarching geography, you could start seeing new patterns. And it's really here where at least I think that the strength of this type of modeling comes into play. And this is a slide with a bit of a, how should I say, for those of us who like theory and structure and order, this is some dimensions of what this geography is all about. So you could see that there is something around strategy happening down here and operations more here. I tend to have my operations usually a bit longer because usually quite a lot going on here, but this could be at least a thinking model of where you could put different things. And then another thing could be to think of where have some making and sourcing and preparing here. decision making, making investments, I don't know, and some more delivery and learning on that side. There's also a way you're working with the positions in terms of it near the center or further out. And now these lanes are fairly small, but you will see in the Scania example that where we can work with a lot more space in the capability layer, where we actually are able to group things that are connected in different ways. And there's also some actors, you could say, that we have suppliers that most could be involved in the way that you develop new things. You have prospects in terms of the potential customers that you want to start a relationship with early, and maybe listening who is planning to visit somebody they love. How can we make sure that we are on one of the choices that they would choose when we are moving into maybe a sales situation, and we want to sort of make sure that they choose us. And then at a certain point, there are customers here. This is a bit of a geeky slide. Some of you might like it. Some of you might think, "What is this?" But as a reference and something that you could think of when you're working with it. So now we're looking into another way. Like I said, in the thinking of how we place the capabilities, I told you that you could work with how they're connected. What am I doing, and then what needs to be done before I can start, and what happens with the results that I'm providing. You can do the same thing with the experience dimension. So this is a number of tasks that we then put on a line and also connect with arrows so that they could form a customer journey. Maybe something, a template for what we would like to happen. It's not that we can decide what customers do. We can never. We can only hope that they find something that is interesting and that they want to interact with us. But by having sort of the ability to expand on the experience and then see what we need to be able to do, and then maybe say, okay, here could be some of the areas where we need to make improvements or we want to do changes. Then just by the geographical closeness here, we could see if we've done our thinking here correct. Then we can say, okay, this most likely the capabilities here, that is something where we need to change. And it's a bit old to say digital now to talk about apps, but constantly there is this, at least I experience this, that there is this shift of people trying to go from product to more services to prolong the relation they have with the customer. And then you can identify tasks where you do not have a corresponding capability yet because you haven't really thought of that thing, and we're not prepared to support whatever that thing might be. I don't know, maybe in this case, the visiting a loved ones. Are we on the arena where people are sharing trip ideas? Or are we not even there yet in those discussions? Do we want to be there? What do we need to have then? Maybe we need to move into platforms like, I don't know, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, because that's where the first ideas of a trip are born, or you get inspiration. And then we need to make sure that we are able to be active there in a good way. So that could be something on tying these sort of insights that you would get from customer perspectives, and the different tasks, and then move them into your capability area. Uh, Now I'm going to do some of these slides fairly quickly because there are a seminar where I walk through this in more detail. But what do we see also, that we can expand again the capability links, if you like, and then add, for instance, IT assets. Just sort of flip out. What are the IT assets that are supporting our capabilities? And then after that, you could look at, okay, what are the capabilities sort of situated and how were they connected to each other? And here's an interesting thing that I found out. I don't know if you will find the same pattern, but if you had a good sort of discussion on what needs to be done before I can start and what needs to be done with my results in other capabilities, just by talking and understanding the processes, most likely you will find not that different patterns when you look at the integrations, because the integrations are an agreement on I have something that you at a certain point want, and then at a certain point it was a good idea to connect the systems with integrations. So looking at how the capabilities are connected can give you a fairly good idea of understanding how close are these capabilities to each other, also from a process and maybe organizational point of view. Conway's law, that is something that we can see here. um, and the last one, the sort of another dimension is also to see the process flow, because processes are most of the time very close to the systems, the IT systems that they support. And you can see that if it's done in a mature organization, that the processes and how they go stepwise from potentially strategic infra planning, they start somewhere here, and then you go to operational infra planning to get some more information, and then maybe some budgeting to get that one over as well. And then you might get a go on actually starting something. These are not random connected, of course. This is journeys or steps that have been crafted over time in the organization. So you can also sort of show how a process looks like in this type of diagram. Um, and the last one before we jump into the Scania example is also that you can look at how do we deliver certain product or service through our landscape. So you could say that, I don't know, there is something around logistics, there is something about product management that needs to go to marketing and the communication, and at a certain point, both the logistical information and the marketing things goes into this sell passenger tickets. Could be maybe something around a meal on the train somehow. Uh, and here, I think, is a lot of things that you can explore. And you can also overlay organizations. I realize that time flew, so I will walk through these slides that I've shown before and move into the examples from the Scania case. And modeling the diagram, I actually there are EA tools that can help you with modeling, uh, but the example from Scania is actually done in a very simple way. It is a Visio diagram that I will share. This I just dropped this one because what I wanted to is to sort of give you some examples of a real case, because the examples that we showed so far are done for training purposes, and they are a bit too simplified to really convey the richness of information that could be um, I almost said stored, but sort of added into a map like this. So I work at Scania as a business architect slash enterprise designer. Scania is a company that has been here for quite some time. 1911 is a year we sometimes reference to, where we were started in in Södertälje. We have been building trucks for a very long time. In the last 10 years, we've been through a merge and are currently now owned by a company called Triton that also owns a German company called MAN and an American company called Navistar. So we're forming a group of heavy duty trucks production and design together. And we have been working with this way of conveying or describing our enterprise for quite some time. And this is our overarching, remember the hand-drawn one with the light bulb and everything. This is our starting point at Scania. So we say that everything starts and ends with the customers, where we offer tailor-made transportation solutions. And once we have signed a deal, we are, of course, delivering that order through our industrial network with all our factories and all our logistics, purchasing and everything. And then the customer gets the delivery and hopefully uses our products for a very long time and is hopefully very happy with what we are able what we're able making it possible for them to do. And unlike, regardless of how well this is working, there is always feedback coming in to the development organization where we consistently improve the products. And the first step here is, of course, decide what are the changes that we want to make to the products we have, given the feedback that we're given and also given the different market changes. And then how do we do the changes right? And then how do we release the changes to the market in the best way possible? And already here you can see that there are a number of blue arrows that are super important to describe the dynamic of this, the way that we want to describe our enterprise as a whole. And also icons. I work with a super talented guy who is able to do all these really, really well-crafted icons that convey symbols to make sure that we can communicate rich. And here are some snapshots of zoomed in maps. And you can see this is the next level of the map, a bit more details, but not much. And here is a version of the most detailed version of the Milky Way. And it doesn't look like capability maps, does it? It is icons instead of boxes, and it's also as many or even more arrows between the icons than the icons in themselves. So what we saw here is that this flow between the capabilities are as important as the capabilities themselves. Usually that is not shown in capability maps like this. And also the position of each capability is very, very important. For instance, this is a capability that is verifying customer demand and the ability for the solutions to fit the customer demands. But it is positioned here. So this has nothing to do with the testing that goes on in the end of the production line at the factory. That's another testing capability, even though it's test and test, if you make it simplified. So there is a really important part of the geography here. Again, I think I'm going to drop this one because we talked about customers and users. It's the same thing. We're maybe not we're not showing them in the base model, but definitely they're both user journeys, which could be sort of design engineer or production engineer, and customer journeys that are more on this side where we have sales, production, and service. But I wanted you to see is how we work with this when we are finding new ways of working in a time of change, because there's a lot of changes going on within our context. And for instance, now that we might have a situation where an offering, we need to have a new offering where the products and services are mixed in another way, and we realize that we need to have new forms of co-delivering these products and services, and we'll also require new forms of co-supporting customers when they're using these products and services. And this will impact how we are collaborating with partners in the portfolio value portfolio making, and also the decision making in the product service development. So this is a simple example of how something that sort of starts as an ambition here to change something has sort of a ripple impact on what we're able to, what we need to change to be able to do that, and then what will change decision making in a very other part of the organization. And sometimes in large organizations, it's really hard to keep track of why are we doing things and how are these different patterns connected. And this is really something that is I've found really strong when we work with these models as something that allows us to find these connections and remember that this is the aim of why we're changing things here. So this ability to simplify complex large settings and choose different situations, understand their connections. And the last examples before maybe we can take some questions. I haven't really been able to follow the chat if there are any questions, but the last one is also, yeah, I know, Richard, there is a lot, and this might be a bit, I don't know. It is a nuance that I don't think that we speak about when we talk about models and ways of describing how organizations work, because even a model like this might look like, brilliant, or what is this, depending on where you come from. But describing how we work within this, how many feedback loops, how is this process being worked on. So this is a super simplified example of what we uh, if we would have been a non agile and a more waterfall company, we could have had a pattern of we're making a lot of efforts into deciding exactly what we should do, and then we do the changes and we iterate until it's done, and then we release, and we are not responsible for a longer sort of part of the process than this. So what's happened on this side is not our responsibility. That could be one way of operating this enterprise, and then you have something else, somebody else that takes care of this one. Another way of looking at the same map, but describing another uh, sort of mode or another dynamic would be, okay, we are realizing that fast feedback loops out to the market is the most important part that we need to be able to do. So our ability to go end to end and make some fast decisions, do some fast development, make sure that we're able to release it to the commercial and industrial network, try it out with some customers, make sure that we're able to produce it, and then get feedback from our first users, and then back again. And we want this to be no longer than, I don't know, 3 months, 2 weeks. I'm not sure what would be when. This is a total different story. The same map, another story. And even just saying that the starting point of this journey is different. If I start here, instead of starting with our investment decision, that says something about our organization, how we work. And Scania always starts at the customer side. Everything that we talk about with how we work is that it starts and ends with the customer. So our way of doing this will be, okay, we have a situation, we have a customer that is asking for something. We're able to, we hopefully with as little delta as possible, we're able to develop, produce it, and then we hope that they are using it as much as possible. And at a certain point, we will get feedback that then is routed into our organization, our sort of development organization. We make some fast decisions, we do the changes, release them, and then at in 2 months or 2 weeks, we have a better offering to the customer at the market. So even with this simplified version of the map, I can tell 3 different stories, and there will be 3 different types of organizations. So this was a fast. I know that I've thrown a lot at you. Maybe we can open up for some short questions because I'm really curious. Do you want to do this? Are you ready for a Milky Way view of your enterprise? Would that be something? Now I can look a bit more on the chat, I hope. So just
Yeah,
help
so
me if
yeah,
we're
we have
positive.
basically one question is uh, what viewpoints would be complementary to Edgy and the Milky Way, like C4, UML, Archimate, and does the Milky Way replace value streams?
I think that looking at the Milky Way, I think that you should see this as an anchoring model. It cannot carry everything, but it can be a starting point for more detailed models and more detailed sort of aspects of what you want to understand. So I think that you could bring in a lot of thinking around capabilities. That C4 is capability, I think, isn't it? That's a framework about capabilities. And when I read about it, it felt really in line with this one. But the difference is this idea of using the geography to help you faster navigate between the different aspects and where you are. Yeah, anything?
Yeah. Then we have a draft Milky Way Center for University
Uh-huh.
by Carlo,
Yeah, there
which
was some
is
done in Sweden, I know. Maybe it's somebody from there.
so we have attract students, teach students, provide
Mhm.
students with skills to succeed, and
Yeah.
measure students' impact on the world.
Hmm.
And interesting enough, there's already a journey map to that also. Students access this, students learn, students achieve some outcomes and have some impact.
Oh, yeah.
Is that good?
It's a very good start, but you might want to wonder why would they come to this university? Or is it a technical university? Is it a marketing university? Is it behavior? What type of? So there will probably be some strategic things going on in recruiting professors, making sure that we have the right institutions, the right type of research going on, and that is another because based upon that, that is what what the students would be offered as classes. So there's this. Sometimes I think of it as two loops. You have this sort of preparing and making sure that we're able to deliver, and then you offer a set of courses potentially to students. Um, Anything else?
Manon is unclear how well this was resonant in her organization.
Mm-hmm.
I can also just report back that initially, usually it's establishing any kind of shared map is difficult just
Yes.
because you are challenging all the other maps.
Mm-hmm.
Once there is a shared map, it really accelerates conversations because people see where they are, where things are, where they are, where other people are, and so on. But that is hard to see as a value before you have experienced it, like
Yeah.
with geographical maps, like normal like routing and so on, we are all used to the north being north. That hasn't always been the case, but now no one
Yes.
can believe that it was otherwise at some point, but it's the
Exactly.
same with the Milky Way. Like once it's there, it's great, but before it's like, oh, but why?
Yeah. Maybe I did something dumb now. Did I? Yeah. No, it's really um, well, one experience is that I usually have the hardest time with the architects because they're really trained to have the capability maps in one way and the process maps in one and so on, while as others who aren't that experienced might have a problem with thinking like this in a different way. But maybe we're a bit over time, and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Um, I'm really glad for your comments. I will look at them later on. I have a hard time reading them, but reach out and see uh, and see if we can sort of point you in a direction where you could try this. Um, and
Yeah, and you find more information also in our YouTube channel on
mhm,
like there are 2 or 3 case studies actually using the Milky Way productively,
mhm.
and there will be more in Rome.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see the different version of it. But really, what I would like you to think of is that we could do this more. Um, I don't know if sophisticated is the right word, but with more afterthought and more care, because we could, if we establish this in a strong way, we could convey so much of this um, tacit knowledge or these aspects that might be hard to understand. So, well, good. I don't know. Do you want to end with some We have actually the slide with Rome. I know that you guys are dropping off because we are a bit over time, but just if you think this was interesting and you want to hear more about these things, there is a fantastic conference going on in September 18th to 20th in Rome, and it's the 10th intersection conference in Milan, right?
Yes,
Where we will have these speakers and also a training day, isn't it?
that's correct. Yes, and
Yeah.
you want to be part of this happy crew.
Yes, you do.
Um, and you see some of the topics that we'll cover, so we are pretty
Uh-huh.
excited about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
good.
well, with that, so I can tell here in Sweden, it's Midsummer Eve tomorrow. It's like not bigger than Christmas Eve, but almost bigger than Christmas Eve. It's the lightest day of the year, and it's a big thing up here in the north. So I'm off tomorrow. So thank you very much for listening in, and reach out if you have any comments or want to connect. It's always super interesting to hear your thoughts.
And
Good.
thanks so much for joining, and thank you, Annika, for presenting.
No, thank you. Always so great to be able to share.
Have a
Okay,
good time off.
bye bye. See you.
Bye bye.
I'm sorry about the camera. That was a bummer. I don't know what happened.